All right. Peace and greetings, YouTubers. Welcome to another edition of In the News. And by the way, my bad. I was trying to get this uploaded earlier today, but I got stuck in traffic, so I couldn't get home fast enough. But man, it's okay though, because I had a bomb playlist. I had like the Spade playlist today. And man, when I tell you, first of all, the playlist started over twice. That's how long I was in traffic. But me and Sade were getting it in, because Sade got to that sweetest taboo. I was like, hey! Like my car turned into the Copacabana. I said, all right, Sade. And then Nothing Can Come Between Us. Remember that song with the bass line? I was like, oh, get it, Sade. But anyway, in the news, let's jump into it. So I have to start off with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I have to give a shout out to Malcolm Jenkins, because I don't know if you've seen this, but Malcolm Jenkins, he's one of the players. And as you know, the president is being real stupid about the Eagles at the moment because, one, they didn't want to go to the White House after they won the Super Bowl, just like the Golden State Warriors didn't want to go, just like LeBron pretty much said, no matter who wins between, Cleveland or Golden State, either team is not going to want to go again. And so, Trump had did this whole thing where he flipped the script and said, well, the Eagles really didn't want to come because they don't like the country and they don't want to stand for the flag and the national anthem. And the same rhetoric that they've been talking about for the last 2 years. And the funny thing about it is they know that what they keep trying to put out there is not true. And they know the origins of why these players have continued to protest peacefully about this anthem. And, they're just going to believe what they want to believe. But anyway, what Malcolm Jenkins decided to do is he was like, you're not going to twist my words. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write down exactly how I feel, and I'm just going to hold it up during the press conference. And so during this press conference, every time they asked him a question, he would hold up a sign, and the sign would have a fact about, the statistics when it comes to police brutality and just the unjust judicial system that we currently have. And I was like, that is so smart. Like, he wouldn't say anything. So anytime they ask him a question, he'd just like, boom. Oh, boom. Because he had like a couple of signs. I think like all of those players should start doing that, to be honest. Like, because one, with a lot of these sports leagues, the players are required to give a press conference afterwards so they can get fined, especially in the NFL. So I think a lot of these players that are protesting or they're taking the knee or they're sitting during the anthem or they just really want people to hear what it is that they're protesting about, honestly, because people like the president and a lot of really extremely right-wing media who pretty much know what's going on but they want to play naive and be dumb, continue to twist the narrative of what's really happening and trying to turn something that was about bringing awareness to what's happening to black individuals when it comes to police brutality and just the injustices that continue to happen to black people as a collective in this country, because they continue to try to twist that narrative and turn it into something where they pit, black trauma against the troops and against loving the country and patriotism and all that crap. I think that's a great idea because there's no way to twist the words. Everything is right there in front of you, and there's no way to misinterpret what has been written. So I think that's a really, really dope idea, and I think it would be really, really, really cool if the other players would join in. Because the thing is, but then again, like I said, a lot of these players are so afraid to speak out on anything. It's okay, money talks, But even with the Philadelphia Eagles and not going to the White House, it was kind of funny watching the president's reaction because he was like, they didn't want to come, but that's fine. We're going to have our own special event where, the other fans and that 1,000 people that were supposed to come, we're going to have our own event where we will stand proud and we will salute our flag and sing the national anthem. I was like, ooh, that sounds like so much fun. Ooh, I bet that food's going to be nasty. Cheese and crackers. That's going to be the dinner for that. Cheese and crackers on the, I'm good. Y'all can have that. But, he said that stuff like it was a prized possession to go to the White House. And I don't think the president understands that people don't really want to be associated with him. Because, one, he's already a lunatic. And the thing about it, even if I take away the insults and I just talk about him, the person, what's interesting about the president is that on a Monday, he will gas you up and hype you up like you're the greatest thing on earth. And then in the same day, like 20 minutes later, he's bashing you on Twitter. So people don't want to be associated with that because it's like, one, you're already a terrible person. And then two, you're inconsistent. And then in addition to that, because he continues to rant and rave about all that he's done for black people and all that he's done for the Latino community. And I'm over here still waiting to see all that has happened, something like a picture with the Philadelphia Eagles will be another photo op where he can milk that and you say, yeah, this is why I'm not racist. Look, I took a picture with a bunch of black folks that play money or that play ball for money. Like, I don't know, but it really was funny though when he said the bit about why they weren't going to be invited and they were going to do their event instead. I'm like, y'all don't even, it sounded so dry. I know them players were like, okay. It's kind of like when I was in elementary and like I said before, I'm from Washington State. You know it's always cloudy and rainy half the time. I remember sometimes I would get in trouble in elementary, and the teacher would be like, Michael, you're not going out to recess today. And I used to be like, okay, it's raining anyway. As a matter of fact, do me a favor, because if I have to go out in the rain and catch a cold, I'm still going to have to come to school tomorrow because my mom is not taking off. So I'm going to still be here. So, yeah, let me just go ahead and stay inside. That's fine. Ain't nobody trying to be outside in no cold rain in November. Between that and, like I used to have this other teacher that used to pass out peppermint. But then she'd get pissed off and take it back before you could eat it if you got in trouble. And I used to be like, okay. Like, she would put the peppermint on your desk, and then you weren't allowed to get it until, like, the end of class as your treat if your behavior was good. Like, so pretty much you start the day off with a peppermint at the top of your desk. And if you were good the whole day, then you get to eat the peppermint. And mind you, peppermint is not even jumping like that. That's like nursing home candy. So, like, I know for sure as a child, I could sit next to this older woman in church, and I knew she would have all kind of peppermint in her purse, all kind of different colors and flavors and stuff. But peppermint is not jumping like that. So when the teacher would snatch that little peppermint back off my desk, I used to be like, okay, I don't want that nasty candy, no way. But anyway, so that's my 2 cents with the whole NFL thing with Mr. Jenkins, Malcolm Jenkins. I think that's a really cool idea. And I can just like envision what that would look like if you had all these players doing that. Even if like at every press conference, all of them just start pulling. And even if it goes across sports and into the NBA. And even I saw there's a player that's on the Caps that plays hockey for DC who was like, I don't want to go to the White House if we win this title as well. Like, just picture if all of these black athletes started doing that as a collective. I think it would get a lot more awareness to the issue, and there's no way to twist their words and try to make it seem like these people hate the flag and they hate the troops, because again, like I said, a lot of the people who are patriotic in this country are always selectively patriotic. They're patriotic when it's time to do some anti-black stuff or some anti-Muslim stuff or anything that goes against the status quo, but then they're perfectly fine voting in candidates that will strip money from the VA. They're perfectly fine driving past the homeless veteran on the sidewalk. They're perfectly fine endorsing the candidates that want to strip away, rights when it comes to getting mental evaluations after these people come back from, shooting and blowing up people for 6 and 7 months at a time and watching their friends die. They're perfectly fine with endorsing candidates that want to strip money from people who are coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq all broke up and beat up and half crazy. They're perfectly fine cutting all that. So kudos to you, Mr. Jenkins. So we'll see what goes on. Moving on. Oh, by the way, the irony, I don't know if y'all saw the clip of the president, but then they had a piece where I guess I don't know if it was the White House choir, it was some group singing like God Bless America. It was real dry too. They did like a nasty version of it, just nasty. It didn't have there was no grit to it. Just like, because by the way, I'm not really patriotic, but I would say I like when somebody can really tear up the national anthem and like sing it and get it in. Like, I gassed up Whitney's version of it not too long ago, or even like America the Beautiful. I always like Ray Charles' version of that. But whatever that choir was singing at this one, it was like, God bless America, land that I love. I was like, ugh. But watching the Trump mess up the words, I'm like, how you know the words of that? It's only 28. Like, I know that mess. I might not align with what I'm singing, but I know that crap. But anyway, moving on. Let me get to Drake, because a lot of you guys kept requesting this for like last week. And when I made that post earlier today asking for requests about what you wanted me to talk about, Drake was the first thing that came up. So let me jump into Drake. I'm going to try to not be too long on this. But, so we already know the backstory, so I'm going to skip all the backstory and get to my opinion. My opinion is this. Well, first let me say this. I really wanted to do a video and drag the mess out of Pusha T for that album cover with the Whitney thing, because that was in poor taste. That wasn't cool at all. And I know that people were like, well, Whitney was... Somebody was saying, well, you guys used to always make fun of Whitney Houston and drugs and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but my thing was this. I feel like that picture that was put out there, or hold on, let me rewind. What a lot of people used to always do with like Whitney and Bobby was they pretty much loved to mimic or just bring light to what Whitney and Bobby did in public, because Whitney and Bobby were unapologetically themselves. And so they were very animated, and Whitney Houston is a Leo, like me, and sometimes we like to be the center of attention on occasion, and we like to we're very loud and rambunctious and have really bold personalities. And so I think a lot of times when people used to always make fun of Whitney or Bobby back in the day, they made fun of what was presented in front of us. But that picture is some stuff that was behind some closed doors that they probably never wanted anybody to see. And so for you to use that as an album cover, and Kanye was in on that crap too, because I think Kanye was the person who pretty much purchased it and was like, well, this is your album cover now. I thought that was just some tacky, Whitney's legacy has always been tarnished by drugs anyway. People love to discredit her because of the drugs. So I'm like, why would you push that as your cover. What are you doing? I just thought that was really in poor taste. That was terrible. But getting to my issue with that, so he was gonna get it from me, but I was at the beach, so I didn't get a chance to make that video. But I was trying to show what little piece of a beach body I have. And anyway, but as it's going on, we've seen, Pusha T came out with his album and he had his song, and then Drake responded like literally the same day. Drake said his bit, brought in Pusha T's fiance and all. I mean, it was going there. And then Pusha T, he let the smoke die down because Drake was winning for a minute. Pusha T came back out, put all kind of business out there. I'm like, you done found out about babies and you done found out all kind of stuff, and then the blackface pictures. I'm like, yo, it's getting real out of pocket, huh? And then from the last update that we've seen, you saw that Jay Prince was saying how he kind of stepped in and was like telling Drake not to respond, even though Jay Prince had said that Drake recorded a follow-up that would end Pusha T and this, that, and the third. So here's my 2 cents on everything. I just gave it background after I just said I wasn't gonna do it, huh? Anyway, my thing is this: Pusha T has nothing to lose because, one, the difference between Pusha T and Drake is that Drake has a pop backing behind him. Drake has he has the masses that support him, and Pusha T doesn't have that. So Pusha T has nothing to lose, which is why Pusha T has no problem doing all the reckless stuff, because at the end of the day, Pusha T has always been Pusha T, and it is what it is. And the other thing I noticed is like there's a generational divide as well. A lot of people who are really invested in this never even heard of Pusha T, never heard of the clips, never that whole Virginia, North Carolina thing. They didn't know about none of that. It was kind of just, they know Drake because if we're being honest, Drake is pretty much, and some of y'all may disagree and want to fight me on this, but pretty much there's a few hip-hop artists that are currently the face of rap music right now. I would say Drake, Nicki, Kendrick, J. Cole, Kanye's still in there. Yeah, y'all still giving, y'all let him be number one. I saw that. I said, yeah, y'all shook the table on Kanye, huh? And so Drake, since at least 2010, I mean, he came out before then, because I remember he was on Replacement Girl with Trey Songz, and that was definitely like 07, 08. But Drake for like a good 7-8 years has really been a commanding force in hip hop, to the point where he's crossed over into pop, and pop audiences really, really support Drake. So what worked in Drake's favor for the longest is that Drake could literally do any and everything he wanted. So even if he did something that was super corny in the hip hop world, the pop world would eat it up and think it was the greatest thing, which is why I think he pretty much won the whole beef between him and Meek Mill, because Meek didn't have that same backing as far as the support coming from the masses and pop audiences and radio and publications and media and everything to pretty much put him on a platform. Drake had that. And then, of course, Drake just drove the nail in the coffin, because it was kind of awkward watching somebody like Drake be in Ottawa, Canada, of all places, doing a concert, and he's still performing a diss track to Meek, talking about, you put this on yourself, Meek. But then the whole audience is like a bunch of like 17-year-old white kids that I just don't think, I'm like, it's weird to watch Drake, who, for me, I don't buy the street cred thing from Drake, because Drake reminds me of myself. And I say that as far as Drake pretty much is somebody who came from I didn't come from a whole lot of much, but Drake pretty much, his experience is not the experience that he's portraying in his music. And so it would be like if I decided to be a rapper, and then I'm talking about, all this, y'all be like, really? First of all, we've been following you on YouTube for this long. We already know who you are. That's what I get from Drake. Drake has always been kind of a cornball to me, but Drake makes really dope music. I'm not gonna lie. Drake drops singles and hits for days. But I think what's worked against Drake in this situation is, one, because Drake is such a huge artist, and he's suffering from what I call oversaturation. Too much Drake, too often, too frequently. He comes out too much music, too often, too frequently, and it's getting to the point where people are like this close to being tired of Drake. And so literally all you needed was one last thing to push people over the edge and flip the script. And I think Pusha T did that with his last response, as far as the thing with the child. And when that blackface picture came out, it made a lot of people question things. And I think Drake, where he messed up was when he responded and he said his bit about what he felt racism was and this, that, and the third. I was like, oh Lord, you done just dug yourself deeper in the hole, Drake. Goodness. But to be honest, will this affect Drake's career? I think in the hip-hop world, he is losing some steam, but pop audiences still eat him up. Like, literally every time Drake comes out with an album, that crap sells so much in the first week, it's just unheard of. And so I think he still has that strong pop backing. And I'm not talking about like pop music, but I'm talking about the masses that are supporting him. He has a lot of support from suburban America. They love Drake. And then Drake also, he gets the support from the hip hop world. But as far as what's going on, because some people are like, well, Pusha T went too far. Is it crossing the line, to bring up this, that, and the third? And I'm like, listen, I don't know if y'all been following hip hop or not, but I mean, this beef here isn't even really that intense, because I personally think the 50 and Ja Rule stuff was a whole lot worse. I mean, remember Fall Back when 50 Cent was talking about Ja Rule's kids, calling the kids dirty? Like, I think there's just been different, and like Beanie Siegel back in the day when he had his beef, and then literally everybody was beefing back in the day. Like Busta Rhymes was up in his stuff, and then of course the Tupac and Biggie thing, and then the Snoop, and then, like, I don't know. My thing is this: if Roxanne Shante could survive literally there being 40, 50 diss tracks being shot at her in a 2-year span, Drake can handle Pusha T doing whatever he's doing, him and putting his business out there. But the other thing is, too, if you're going to be a celebrity and you want to jump into a beef, you better make sure that all of your dirt is accounted for, or that you are in control of whatever dirt that you have, because if somebody gets a hold of it, it's going out there. Because I saw the bit where they said, well, Drake was, offering up to $100,000 for dirt on Pusha T. I don't know how true that was. That was kind of like some gossip stuff I was seeing. But, again, Pusha T has nothing to lose. You can put out whatever you want about Pusha T, but because Pusha T does not have... If Pusha T were to fall or fall from grace, it's not a big fall. It's like that. If Drake has a fall, he's going to fall a couple stories. And that's no diss to Pusha T. It's just that Pusha T has always wanted to be what I would say. I don't think Pusha T was fighting to be a commercially mainstream luxury entertainer, if I get what I mean. You get what I mean? Like, he just wanted to do his thing and call it a day and stay in his lane. Drake, on the other hand, has had a machine behind him, and so the goal with Drake was to get Drake way up here. That was never the goal when it came to marketing clips or marketing Pusha T. But anyway, so that's my 2 cents. As far as Drake in the blackface situation, he tried to say, he was 18 and senator. My only thing with that is, I feel like certain things, it's hard to get people to pass on even if they are young, because some things you just know. You know that blackface is problematic. And then you had the little Sambo shirt or whatever you had on too. I'm like, come on now. Now, he said it was about a project and it was a theme and it was a marketing. So I'm like, maybe I just need to see the larger context of what he was talking about, or see what was actually supposed to happen. But it just, all timing, bad timing for everything that happened with Drake. I think Drake lost this one so far, but I think what's going to work in Drake's favor is that because he has the commercial machine behind him, they'll do something, and I think he's still gonna respond to Pusha T, but he might not do it until he comes out with his next project, which I think is almost coming out anyway. I think there'll be a response on that, but I don't know if there's gonna be a follow-up track. But Drake, I think he ended up looking just soft in all of this, and I'm not taking sides. Really, I don't really follow either of them like that, but it is what it is. Moving on, Kim Kardashian. So, as we see, Kim Kardashian was really passionate about, I guess, prison reform. Let me rephrase that. They tried to push it as prison reform, but really, I think it was more so this specific case was near and dear to her heart, and that's what she fought for. So, the Alice Marie Johnson situation, which is about a woman who pretty much got like a life sentence plus 25 years for a first-time offense for a non-violent drug-related crime or something like that. And Kim discovered the case and was like, I want to do something about it, because she pretty much stated, in my life, I pretty much have everything, and I get bored shopping, and I get bored just being able to buy things, and sometimes I just want to do something good for somebody else. And so she met with the president, and the president commuted her sentence, and that's that. And so I will give Kim her kudos for that, and that's cool, and I'm not going to take that away from her, because to be honest, I think that's probably one of the best things she's ever done in her career. That's the one thing that I can now look at her and say, okay, Kim, cool. However, my issue is that it doesn't sit well in my spirit that pretty much the livelihood of a lot of black people who are incarcerated are in the hands of celebrities and people who have access. The reason Kim Kardashian was able to do something like get to the president and do all that is because Kim Kardashian has access. Because if we're being really, really honest, and please don't take this as me dissing Kim, I'm just talking about a larger spectrum here. There are so many grassroots activists and so many people who have pretty much made it their life mission to go and get the sentences of a lot of people commuted and fight for prison reform and fight for lots of changes in the judicial system, and who have been fighting for years and decades and have whole organizations and will never get an invite to the White House because of how they look, or because of who they're associated with, or because it doesn't match the politics of what the president has. So yes, I think it's cool that Kim used her platform and the power that she had in the moment to do something great for someone, but I would like to see her expand it, kind of almost, or partner with these organizations that are doing more. And that's why, and then at the same time, Kim, I really should have did a video on this too. Just the whole thing with her and Rhymefest. I really, really wanted to jump in and because one, I didn't even think that was Kim tweeting. I really thought that was Kanye tweeting on Kim's account. But, Rhymefest, that whole situation with Donda's house and how Kim had said, well, I'll have my children run it. I'll buy it from you and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, see, that's the thing I don't like about celebrities and people who are super, super rich. They will use their money as a weapon against people. And so they see that there's wrong going on in the world and they're aware of it. But they only want to address it when it's convenient for them, or they only want to bring it up when it elevates them to a higher standpoint. Because I also feel some kind of way when people always broadcast what it is that they do for other people. Like, I work with children, but I don't, other than me telling you I work with children, y'all don't know what I do. Like, that's all I give you. I never post videos of me, giving children Christmas because I don't need the praise for that, because it's not about me. It's about what I'm passionate about doing. And so for people who literally make it their lives to help others, who do it behind the scenes, you know what I mean? It's like, it's always weird when I see other entertainers or people do it and they have to have a camera do everything. Like for her to go and do the picture with the president, because of course he's going to use this as a ploy again with all that he's done for African Americans, and look at, I got her out of jail and blah 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 blah. Just like with LeVar Ball's son and all that, and they should have been grateful I got them out, and it turned out he had nothing to do with getting that boy out of jail in China. But it's weird. I just don't think everything has to be documented sometimes. And because somebody made a post, and it proves my point. I saw somebody post something, and I think it was on the Shade Room where they posted the screen cap. But somebody was cooking Beyonce and Jay-Z, saying, they don't do anything, and it's a shame that Kim had to do something before they did. And I'm like, well, Beyonce and Jay-Z actually do a lot behind the scenes. And mind you, I'm just now giving them credit, because I used to cuss Jay-Z out too. Because when he did that My Presence is Charity line to Harry Belafonte, I was like, oh really, your presence is charity, huh? But I think he learned from that. But yeah, Beyonce and Jay-Z have behind the scenes been doing a bunch of organizational work. A lot of these celebrities do a lot of it. Alicia Keys does that. Janet Jackson does a lot of stuff, especially overseas, especially like in Syria and stuff. With I remember she did all the wells in Madagascar for one of the areas over there. Like a lot of these celebrities are doing stuff behind the scenes, but they don't need a camera to follow them as they do it, and they don't need a camera to document them doing it all. So I don't know what to make of what Kim did, but I will say it's commendable that she did help to change somebody's life in a positive way. But she just has so many other problematic things that I have a beef with. It's hard for me to really give her a red carpet rollout, because it's like, I just think there's so many additional people who are also doing what it is that she's done. So I won't take away from what she's done, but I think we also need to give light to a lot of these organizations that have been fighting and clawing for some of the things. And the thing about Donald Trump is, what I would like to see him do, since he's claiming he's doing so much for black people, is I would like to see him continue on the path that Obama was trying to do when it came to pretty much cutting ties with the mandatory minimum sentences when it came to drug use, as far as crack versus cocaine. That was getting somewhere, and it's dead right now. So I would like to see the current president take that on. Then maybe I could almost give him some credit, because pretty much I think he just entertained this because he needed a photo op. And of course, the Kardashians are a social luxury, so having any kind of association with Kim Kardashian makes Donald Trump look a little bit cooler. And that's that. Somebody asked me about Kate Spade, and I will be so honest, I have never heard of her until she died. I'm not into fashion. That's just the world I don't really care about. I can dress nice when it's time to, but I've never been into heavy name brand stuff too much. I've never had a pair of Jordans. I don't own any Gucci or whatever else is out there. But somebody was asking me about the suicide, and is it selfish when people... Actually, let me be honest. The rest of this video is going to be a little bit deeper. They're asking, is it selfish when people take their own life? And so my response to that, because I don't know her situation. I just know she was rich. She had a company. I think her and her husband got divorced, and she got a daughter. I'll say this. I'm not ever going to justify suicide for anybody, but at the same time, I don't live in anybody's head. But I will say, I think when people get to that space where they're ready to just end their lives because whatever it is that they're dealing with is too much for them, they are not in the same space that you know them in. They're not in the same space that you recognize. Those of you who watch me, you recognize me from the conversation and the content that I give you. So this is what you recognize. But if I were ever to be on that ledge or something because something just took me there, which I don't think it ever will, if I were to do that, that wouldn't be the me that you see now doing that. That would be the me that has dealt with something that is just so detrimental to the point where it's so emotionally draining, it has overtaken my logic to the point where I can't process things. And I think a lot of people who decide to take their lives, they're in a space where the pain from whatever they're dealing with is so unbearable that the logic is just not there. The logic, because I always say emotion and logic, they don't connect. And then when you add ego and pride in the mix, it's just a hot mess. But it's like if you get your heart broken, you will step outside of yourself and do things that you never saw yourself doing before. You feel things that you never thought you could feel before, and then you don't even ever want to be in love again because you don't want to feel that pain again. And I think if you've ever gotten your heart broken or something like that, you flash back to just where you were in that space, and you remember you would go to sleep feeling some kind of way, and you'd wake up feeling exactly the same way. Like, dang, I still feel just as terrible. Like, I think that's the space that some people are in when they're in that headspace where they don't want to live anymore, where it's to the point where whatever they've dealt with is that unbearable that even with all of the knowledge that they've gained in their life, matriculation and all that they've learned and how centered they may have been, that once they're getting to that space where this is happening and they're ready to just end it all, they're not themselves. They're another being. They are a response to that trigger that has brought them to that space. So if you're asking, are they selfish? I don't think you're going to say they're selfish I don't think they're selfish because you're comparing them to what you know them as, not to what they are behind closed doors, to something you've never been introduced to. And that's sad, because I saw the bit that she wrote the letter for the daughter. I'm like, man, you have to really be on something if you can literally write your suicide note to your own child and tell them, I still love you, it's not your fault. Like, you really have to be somewhere so far gone. It makes me think back to one of I think it was the second video I ever made on this channel, where it was about the guy from Rutgers. He had killed himself. I think he was closeted, like sexually. He was closeted, and the roommates and some people in the dorm suspected that he was gay, and so they set up a camera in the room to try to catch him in action, and then they did, and then they spread it around the campus, and he was just humiliated, and so he drove all the way to one of those bridges and jumped off the bridge. And I'm like, you gotta think where your headspace is for you to do that, because going back, Kate, pretty much from what I read, she hung herself with a scarf. If you're gonna hang yourself, that sounds like such a horrible way to go out, because it's not a quick death. It's long. You're consciously thinking of what you're doing as it's happening, because it's at least going to be 30 to 45 seconds before you suffocate and die. So you have time to almost change your mind and for you to still go through with it. Really, you're not yourself, which is why I was saying, when you get disappointed with people who do that, again, you're holding them to the standard that you knew them as when they were well, not to the standard that they're currently in that you may not recognize because maybe they didn't tell anybody. But going back to the Rutgers guy, I'm like, this guy literally decided, I don't want to live anymore. So it's he gets in the car, drives all the way to this location, gets to the bridge, gets out the car, and then gets to the edge and still decides to jump. And mind you, that's not a quick death either. That's a death where you got to fall for a good, 15 or 20 seconds, and you might not even die when you hit the water. And most likely, if you don't die right away, you'll go into shock because your body, if the water's super cold, so then you drown that way, and you're consciously seeing yourself die. I think that is when people are to that state, I don't think it's fair for us to judge where they are, even though we don't like what they do, because when somebody kills himself, it hurts everybody who's around them. I agree. But I think it's so much deeper than that. And it leads me to the last point, because today is also the 3-year anniversary of Kalief Browder, Kalief Browder. He was the kid in New York who, long story short, he pretty much got arrested for a robbery that he did not commit. They just claimed he stole a backpack, and they had him sit in Rikers Island for 3 years, not even go to trial. And then they dropped the charges and they released him, and he ended up killing himself because by the time he got out, he was an adult. And I think in the experience of black men, the worst time you could ever be incarcerated is from your teenage years into adulthood. If you go into any kind of prison system in your teenage years and you don't come out until after you're an adult, I think that is the worst time to be in jail, because literally you're forced to mature in an environment where there's no maturity. And I don't mean, and I'm not trying to diss the people in jail, but what I'm saying is maturity is more than just you getting older and you learning from your mistakes. You get your maturity from your experiences. You get your maturity each and every day that you go to work. You get your maturity each and every time you go to the gas station, each time you go to the grocery store to do something, anytime you go to some social event, anytime you run into somebody, anytime there's some kind of conflict and you learn how to handle it, anytime you go through an experience that is not your everyday, in any experience pretty much, builds your maturity, builds your experience. So when you have to spend your maturity or your adolescence in a space where there's no room for growth because you're just in a cell and you're around a bunch of other people who are also internally hurt, who have horrible outlooks on life, especially the ones who know they're not getting out, the ones who have committed certain offenses and they're in there forever. That's your experience for 4 years or 3 years or whatever. That's what you've been surrounded by, and you missed what was left of your childhood. You didn't get to grow into a man, and I think a lot happens between the age of 14 and the age of 18. I just see it with the teens that I work with. I see such a huge difference in how they are by the time they leave and go off to college in comparison to when they were in middle school or when they were ninth grade. It's like there's so much that changes, and I think you have to have peace of mind, and you have to pretty much be in a good space during that time period in order to be a functioning adult. And so if you have somebody who spends 14, 15, 16, 17 those years while they're in jail and they come out at 18, 19, or 20, it's like you came into jail as a child, now you're released into the world as a man, and you don't even know how to be one. You can't even process what's going on because all you've known was people telling you how to do everything. This is what time you eat. This is what time you take a shower. This is what time you go to bed. Lights out. You can't do this. You can't do that. And then the family that does visit you, they can only visit you every other Saturday. And mind you, most of the time, they always put you in a jail that's 3 or 4 hours away from your family. I'm speaking from experience because, half of my family's in jail. And so, I just think that that's a lot that people deal with. And I always think that, and I think that's what made Kalief just lose it. Like, he came out just like, I don't know who I am. I was once a happy person who was on my way to a party, and then I got incarcerated, and my parents couldn't afford the bail. And mind you, I was already, I think he was adopted on top of that. And then, my family couldn't afford to get me out, and I'm out, and I don't know what to do with myself. I have no education. There's not going to be any jobs for me. This, that, and the third. I can't handle this pressure. And at that moment, again, his headspace, I just don't think he knew who he was. I don't think he could fathom the idea of continuing on at that moment because he just didn't have that empowerment or that support behind him, and he was so vilified. And mind you, he was treated horribly in the jail. His experience, if you saw the documentary, was absolutely horrible. Rikers Island is one shithole place that nobody should be in, period. And so that's that. And it makes me think back to Central Park 5 and those kids, especially the one who was in jail for like 13 years. Like, because mind you, they got accused of raping somebody. The 5 of them did none of it. One of them wasn't even at the park. He was at a friend's house. He just went with his friend for the interrogation just to support him. And then he got interrogated, and he confessed to doing something he didn't do because they had the kids in interrogations for like 100,000 years. But like, seeing them now as adults, it's so it hurts my, I was about to say it hurts my feelings. It really does, but it gets under my skin just when I watch them talk, because even listening to them articulate their words, they didn't even get to finish their education, so they still speak as if they're 13, even though they're in their 40s. Like, it's like the girls that were in Ohio that were kidnapped in that basement with the guy for like 10 years. And I remember one of the girls, I think the oldest one, had got out, and she had wrote a poem or something, and she presented it, and it sounded like a 13-year-old was talking. Because you got to think, if you're sitting in a basement for 10 years, you don't get to go anywhere, you don't get to do anything. Maybe you see some TV every now and then you get raped every other day. You don't get to grow. You're not experiencing anything. Your dialect and your vernacular doesn't get to expand because it's limited to what you pretty much, it's like you push pause on your life, and then when you get free, you push play, but time didn't stop. Just, the world didn't stop for you. That's what it feels like. The world did not get to stop for you, and you have to matriculate in society. So that girl, that woman, when I watched her speak and do the interviews, it sounded like it was a 13-year-old girl talking. And it's the same thing with some of the Central Park 5 individuals. The guy that I think had got the 13 years, it sounds like a 14-year-old that's talking. Like, he's not able to articulate the way he would like to because he just doesn't have the vernacular. And that's something that was taken from him. And so it goes back to Trump, which is like, Trump is the same person who wished that, they would bring back the death penalty. The same person who took out that article piece in the New York Times saying, the 5 of those kids should die because they raped this woman when they didn't even do it. And so, again, even though this all ties back to, like Kim Kardashian and going and doing what it was she did for that woman, which was great. It's like, again, Trump doesn't care about no prison reform, Kim. He's doing that because you're Kim. If I would go and meet with the president and do that same thing, you think that woman was going to get out? Absolutely not. And so it's just like all of this stuff is just tied in together. It's crazy. So to go back to the question that I just went so left field on, as far as suicide, I think for us, as much as it hurts when somebody chooses to take their life, you just have to, I don't want to say put yourself in their shoes, but you just have to understand that your experience is different and everybody responds to things differently. And so I'm not giving justification to suicide, but you have to look at all the pieces that triggered somebody to get to that space. And me coming from Washington State, which is a state that has the second highest suicide rate in the country. Like, by the time I finished high school, there were 8 people who offed themselves by the time we graduated. And the youngest one did it when we were in 8th grade, which was crazy. Like, it's like, man, I just wish sometimes that the people who do decide to do that, I wish almost that it's like they could fast forward in time and see that in due time they would have been able to deal with what it was that they dealt with, most likely. But, you know, it is what it is. This has been such a long video, so I'm going to stop it here. I owe you guys a couple videos because I was really dropping the ball like this month, but I'm working on some things on the side, so just bear with me. But anyway, that is it. Share your 2 cents. I'm out, and let's keep an eye out and see what happens with this Drake thing. And then somebody asked me, do I think the Golden State is going to win? It's looking like it, but I wouldn't put anything past LeBron, but we will see. Anyway, I'm out.